All right, welcome back, everyone. If I could invite everybody to come in and take a seat, we're going to get ready for the debate. You can see a QR code on the screen, which will take you to a Slido page where you can vote your either support for or your opposition to the motion. And let me explain how this is going to work. Many of you have been here before and have participated in these debate programs, but some of you haven't. So we are going to follow the rough structure of an Oxford Union debate. So we're going to start by taking everybody's vote either in favor of or against the motion, and then I will record the results. And let's see, I think I need to go ahead and I'll start the poll while I'm explaining. Hopefully everybody had a chance. The QR code is still up there on the screen. You can go ahead and start recording your votes as I explain. So we're going to start by figuring out how many people here present are in favor and how many people are opposed. And then we will have a 10-minute opening statement in favor of the proposition. That will be given by Darrell Gunter, who is Managing Director of Gunter Media Group. He's a fairly well-known figure in the scholarly communication ecosystem. Many of us here know Darrell. We will then have a 10-minute statement against the proposition from Amanda Licastro, who is head of digital scholarship at Swarthmore College and is here at Researcher to Reader for the first time. We're very grateful to have her here with us. Darrell will unfortunately not be with us because he was grounded by the terrible blizzards that are hitting the northeast of the U.S. So he's going to be participating remotely. So we'll have the opening 10-minute statement in favor, the opening 10-minute statement against. We'll then have a 3-minute response from Darrell, and then we'll have a 3-minute response from Amanda. I will be the clock Nazi. I will be enforcing the time limits very, very strictly in fairness to everyone. And then following the opening statements and the responses, we will then have time for everybody in the audience to ask questions and make comments. Now, this is going to be a little bit different from what you might have experienced at conferences where people get very fussy if you make a comment or make a statement instead of asking a question. Here, you're welcome to make a statement. You're welcome to make your contribution to the debate. And then when we're almost out of time, we will take the same poll again, and we will measure how the votes have changed. So the winner will not necessarily be the person supported by the majority. The winner will be the person who has moved the most votes. And then, having declared a winner, we will be done. So let's see, where are we? It looks like things have slowed down, so I'm going to call it 81% in favor and 20% against. And with that, I'm going to stop the voting. And while we're listening to the debaters, I will reset it, and then we'll start again at the end. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and invite Darrell to the screen. Now, unfortunately, Darrell is operating at a little bit of a disadvantage here. You're not going to experience the full force of his charisma and personality, because whereas Amanda, you're going to experience Amanda at her full force. But nevertheless, we do what we have to do. So we'll start with Darrell, and then we'll proceed from there. And Darrell, in just a moment, I will start the timer. Go.
All right. Good morning. To our host, Mr. Mark Carden, our esteemed moderator, Mr. Rick Anderson, my fellow debater, Ms. Amanda Licastro, and all of the R2R attendees, greetings. My apologies for my flights being canceled, not being there in person. I was really looking forward to this. Well, I'm Darrell Gunter. I'm President and CEO of Gunter Media Group, and I'm here to debate the resolution that asks us to weigh the future of how we create, share, and preserve knowledge. The resolution is AI tools will provide a net benefit to scholarly communication. Note the phrase net benefit. This does not mean AI is perfect. It does not mean that AI is without risk. It means that when we weigh the staggering potential for discovery against the challenges of implementation, the scale tips decisively in favor of the affirmative. Scholarly communication is the nervous system of human progress. It is how a cure discovered in a lab in Boston saves a patient in Mumbai. It is how historical insight in London informs a policy in Tokyo. Today, that nervous system is strained. We are drowning in data. We're facing a crisis of reproducibility and struggling with barriers to access. My argument today is simple. AI is not just a nice to have tool, it is the essential lever we need to solve these crises. AI will provide a net benefit by doing three things: accelerating scientific discovery, restoring efficiency to the publishing workflow, and democratizing access to knowledge. My point one, accelerating the core mission, discovery. Let's start with the most important benefit, the content itself. The primary goal of scholarly communication is to disseminate the truth about our world. AI has already proven itself to be an engine of innovation that generates solutions infeasible for humans alone. We're not speaking hypothetically. In the field of biomedical research, AI has been used to predict protein structures at scale. A task that previously took decades of manual labor is now being accomplished in moments. This has significantly accelerated drug discovery, allowing us to publish and share life-saving findings faster than ever before. In healthcare, AI systems are now facilitating accurate diagnosis and personalized treatments. When we publish this research, we're not just publishing papers, we're publishing the blueprints for human survival. If AI tools allow researchers to analyze massive data sets and find patterns that the human mind would miss, the value to scholarly communication is immense. The opposition may worry about black boxes, but we must ask, is it ethical to slow down the discovery of a cure for cancer or a solution for climate change because we are afraid of the tool that helps us find it? The net benefit here is measured in lives saved and truths uncovered. My point two, solving information overload, efficiency. My second point addresses the process of scholarly communication. Our current system is breaking under the weight of its own output. Researchers are fatigued, editors are overwhelmed, and libraries are underfunded. AI offers a critical solution: efficiency and automation. Proponents of AI argue that it significantly enhances productivity by automating routine tasks. In the context of publishing, think of the hours highly skilled scholars spend on formatting, reference checking, and initial data screening. AI can handle these repetitive processes, allowing human workers, our editors and researchers, to focus on higher level strategic initiatives. We know that AI operates without fatigue or stress, reducing the errors caused by human exhaustion. Imagine an ecosystem where AI tools automatically flag data inconsistencies or statistical errors before a paper even reaches a peer reviewer. This doesn't replace the reviewer, it augments them. It clears the clutter so the human expert can focus on the novelty and validity of the ideas. Furthermore, libraries and institutions are increasingly using AI to streamline operations. This means better resource allocation and freeing up librarians to support students and faculty rather than managing metadata manually. The administrative relief AI provides is essential for the sustainability of our industry. Let's talk about point three, democratization and access. My third point, the most aligned with the mission of libraries, is democratization. The con side will tell you that AI exacerbates inequality, but the evidence suggests AI is a powerful tool for access. AI tools help people access and understand information quickly, aiding in skills development and research. Consider the barrier of language. English is the de facto language of scholarly communication, which excludes a massive portion of the global population from participating fully in science. AI-driven translation and summarization tools can instantly make global research accessible to non-native speakers, breaking down the walls that keep global scholarship siloed. In education, AI facilitates personalized learning for students struggling to understand a dense academic text. An AI assistant can provide a summary, explain complex terminology, and guide them through the material. This is the definition of democratizing knowledge. It lowers the barrier to entry for students, early career researchers, and the public. By tailoring interactions to individual needs, AI improves user engagement with scholarly content. It transforms a static repository of PDF files into a dynamic, interactive conversation in knowledge with visualization. Let's address the risks, the net calculation. Now I must address concerns likely to be raised by the opposition. They will speak of algorithmic bias, job displacement, and hallucination. We do not deny these risks. We know that algorithms trained on biased data can perpetuate unfair outcomes. We know that there's a fear that automation will disrupt our labor markets. However, the question is not, is AI perfect? The question is there a net benefit? On bias, bias exists in human beings too. Peer review is rife with unconscious bias regarding gender, geography, and institutional prestige. AI, unlike a human, can be audited, tweaked, and improved. We can fix a biased algorithm. It is much harder to fix a biased human. International bodies like UNESCO are already establishing governance frameworks to ensure transparency and accountability. We are capable of regulating this technology. On jobs, history tells us that technology rarely destroys jobs, it shifts them. While routine tasks may be automated, this frees us up for strategic work. In scholarly publishing, we don't want humans checking citations. We want humans arguing over ideas. We want librarians teaching information literacy, not cataloging by hand. AI is a tool of empowerment, not replacement. On loss of control, the fear is that AI will erode autonomy, is a challenge of governance, not a reason to abandon the tool. The human in the loop remains essential. We are not handing over the keys to the library. We're hiring a superpower assistant to help us manage the collection. In conclusion, the scholarly community faces a choice. We can retreat into a defensive posture, overwhelmed by the volume of information, paralyzed by the fear of change, or we can embrace a tool that offers us a lifeline. AI accelerates the discovery of life-saving science. AI automates the drudgery that burns out our brightest minds. AI opens the doors of our libraries to the world through translation and personalization. The risks are real, but they are manageable through the robust governance frameworks that are already being developed. These benefits, however, the cures found, the students taught, and the time saved are transformative. For these reasons, the affirmative asserts that AI tools will indeed provide a net benefit to scholarly communication. Thank you.
Okay. Tell me when. Go. Okay. AI is not artificial, and it is not intelligent. There are humans behind every decision, and despite big promises and billions of dollars, tech corporations have not achieved a neural network that can make conscious choices. Rather, these systems simply predict what the most likely outcome is from the data they have access to. As Alex Hanna and Emily Bender say in the AI Con, these systems are only capable of making things up, citing Cory Doctorow's theory of enshittification, claiming that not only does our technology get worse on purpose, it makes our lives worse in the process. And that holds true of the systems that support scholarly communication. The validity, accuracy, and authority of scholarly communications is at stake, which is why I oppose the infiltration of unregulated AI tools in our scholarly communication systems. They are not a net benefit. There is a deeply concerning lack of transparency about what is exactly in the data sets used by major Gen AI companies. Digital humanists and whistleblowers have proven the likelihood that these companies are relying on sources such as social media sites like Reddit, stolen copyrighted material, and other unfiltered content from the open web to shape their products. And that material is taken out of context, divorced from its original meaning, disclosures, or scholarly interpretation. Garbage in, garbage out, as they say. And the data remains garbage despite the millions of humans employed to make them safer. Thanks to the fearless work of researchers such as Timnit Gebru, we know that so-called AI systems are fueled by underpaid workers around the world, performing repetitive tasks under precarious labor conditions. These data laborers and content moderators are paid less than $1.50 an hour to be exposed to traumatic content so that end users are not. Take as an example the millions of images of real women and children undressed by the AI product Grok. Burnout in these jobs is quick, and the lasting post-traumatic stress is significant, impacting the mental health and well-being of these human workers indefinitely. Tressie McMillan Cotton debunks the hype around generative AI as mid-tech, arguing that hype isn't held to account for being accurate, only for being compelling. One of the seemingly compelling use cases in scholarly communications involves AI add-ons to summarize academic articles and to suggest further reading on the topic. While I can point to reasons why these tasks might be useful in limited scenarios, in my own testing of these products, the results are often inaccurate, misleading, or require a high level of literacy to both conduct the search properly and evaluate the results. I am a part of a team that evaluates digital tools for the use in our college library. We systematically went through our scholarly databases to test new AI add-ons, almost always represented by magically sparkly emojis that were not approved by either the administrators or the users. In the dozens of tools we tested, all but one failed our assessment because they fabricated results, misled users, and lacked transparency. For example, in ProQuest's eLit database, I, as a scholar who has published on Margaret Atwood, opened one of her poems that uses the functions of a biological heart as a metaphor for complex human relationships, and those magic sparkles suggested further reading on cardiology from medical journals, completely misinterpreting the intention of the poem. Upon further investigation, this AI add-on was simply an overlay using ChatGPT to generate results while appearing to be an internal tool customized by ProQuest, leading users to believe it can and should be returning results from full-text access to the ProQuest databases as the primary data set. Instead, it obfuscates the use of OpenAI, the company that owns ChatGPT, by embedding it into a reputable academic database, misleading patrons who have moral objections to OpenAI's policies and practices, and eliminating the user's agency. As a team, we decided not only to turn this off, but also to publish a statement on our website explaining that it is more ethical to direct patrons who wish to use AI for research to our standalone data-protected platforms that have been vetted and negotiated by librarians and technologists, so that patrons must make the conscious choice to use these tools. As I return to the humans behind all AI products, I won't have time to dive into the surrounding environmental impact of AI and the data centers being built to fuel them, or the loss of jobs attributed to AI that has resulted in a dramatic 20% reduction in computer science majors on my campus alone, because I want to focus on three issues intrinsically tied to scholarly communications: bias, copyright infringement, and cognitive offloading. Point one, racial and gender biases are baked into the model. As Alex Hanna puts it, if you are just gathering data from the internet without intention to embedded gender and race bias in the US, that is of significant concern. In other locations around the world, we also see bias in language, religion, and caste. One of the most compelling studies, published in ACM Digital Library, proves that ChatGPT changes non-gendered pronouns in low-resource languages to the stereotypical gender for that profession in language translation. This is alarming because language translation is one of the most hyped use cases for generative AI tools in scholarly communications, but one that I personally had high hopes for in terms of equity and accessibility. However, this kind of bias should invoke rage, as it will unequivocally harm those with the fewest resources the most. As Seth Perlow writes, AI models do worse than duplicate and amplify poisonous human discourses. They enable new kinds of harm, such as bespoke propaganda automatically tailored to individual readers, deepfake pornography, which differentially affects women and gender nonconforming people, or the expanding use of proprietary opaque algorithms in decisions about such matters as mortgage, insurance rates, policing strategy, and criminal sentencing, which entrenches racial and other inequalities. These problems will get worse. Point 2, AI companies are stealing artistic and scholarly content. According to the Authors Alliance, there have been at least 75 copyright lawsuits against AI companies since 2022 in the United States alone, and dozens more around the world. The focus of these lawsuits is not if LLMs are trained on pirated material, which is undeniable. It is if this use is transformative and therefore fair use. Even as a longtime open access advocate, these litigations make me pause, especially the results of BART and Anthropic's suit, which awarded individual author settlements in the range of $3,000 each. Why do these lawsuits matter? Because Stanford and Yale researchers, as well as an expose by the Washington Post, found compelling evidence that AI models are actually copying all that data, not learning from it. In fact, this group found that both Claude and Gemini could reproduce novels still under copyright with a stunning 95% accuracy rate. Similarly, in a brilliant and brave piece for the New York Times, comic artist Sarah Anderson describes how users of an online chat group used AI to reproduce my work, editing it to reflect violently racist messages advocating genocide and Holocaust denial, complete with swastikas and the introduction of people getting pushed into ovens. Sarah Anderson and millions of other artists across genres and mediums have had their work scraped without permission into these data sets used by tech oligarchies and have little to no recourse on how their art is being used by these tools, and obviously this comes without attribution or compensation. Point 3, Gen AI tools negatively impact the development of critical academic skills. My most important job is as an educator. When I teach literature courses or lead workshops in artificial intelligence across the curriculum, I stress the very real threat of cognitive offloading. This is the phenomenon that happens when you outsource a mental process to a digital tool. Think of the seemingly innocuous examples of using spell check or Google Maps. A study done by MIT researchers used brain scans to show the difference in how neural pathways are formed in 3 groups of adults composing essays. One group composed essays on their own, another with traditional search, and the third with access to AI. Their findings are terrifying. LLM users not only formed fewer neural pathways, their pathways actually atrophied with continued use. And I quote, "Cognitive activity scaled down in relation to external tool use. While LLMs offer immediate convenience, our findings highlight potential cognitive costs. Over 4 months, LLM users consistently underperformed at neural, linguistic, and behavioral levels. These results raise concern about the long-term educational implications of LLM reliance and underscore the need for deeper inquiry into AI's role in learning. To me, this suggests that we need to limit or prohibit the use of AI tools for the creation of original content in lower grades and dedicate significant resources to improving AI literacy in higher education. If we allow students to offload critical reading and writing skills to AI, it will result in a population that cannot think for themselves. I have read enough dystopian novels to know how this story ends, and I will point to the rise of fascism across the world as a potential result. These are not politically neutral tools, and we need to be cognizant of how they are being implemented in scholarly communications.
Okay, we'll now have a 3-minute response from Darrell, followed by a 3-minute response from Amanda.
So the definition of a benefit, Ms. Licastro focuses heavily on the flaws of generative AI, such as hallucinations, bias, and copyright infringement. However, the core rebuttal is that a net benefit doesn't mean that AI is perfect or without risk. It means that the immense potential for scientific discovery and efficiency decisively outweighs the challenges of implementation. Countering the risk of bias, while Ms. Licastro correctly identifies the racial and gender biases can be baked into AI models, the rebuttal argues that the human processes such as peer review are already rife with unconscious bias regarding gender, geography, and prestige. Unlike human beings, AI algorithms can be audited, tweaked, and improved. Furthermore, international bodies like UNESCO are actively establishing governance frameworks to ensure AI accountability and transparency, making these risks manageable. Innovations versus making things up. Ms. Licastro argues that the AI systems are prone to making stuff up and providing inaccurate or misleading results. In contrast, the rebuttal highlights that AI is a proven engine of innovation that generates solutions that are otherwise impossible for humans alone. For example, AI has successfully predicted protein structures at scale, significantly accelerating drug discovery and life-saving healthcare solutions. The rebuttal poses an ethical question. Is it right to slow down the discovery of cures for cancer or climate change simply because we're afraid of the tool that is helping us? Additionally, AI can actually reduce errors caused by human exhaustion by automatically flagging inconsistencies before a paper even reaches the peer reviewer. Efficiency and job shifting versus job loss, addressing Ms. Licastro's concerns about job loss and exploitative labor conditions. The rebuttal argues that technology historical shifts rather than destroying them. The current scholarly communication system is overwhelmed with fatigue with reviewers and underfunded libraries. By automating repetitive tasks like reference checking and metadata management, the AI frees up human experts to focus on higher level strategic initiatives, such as arguing ideas or teaching information literacy. It is framed as a tool for empowerment, not replacement. Keep in mind that there's always been bad actors in this area. And this is where we need to have a new tool like Gadget Software's compute ready documents that won't allow the bots to infiltrate your content so that content cannot be stilled. And so we talk about democratizing access versus cognitive offloading. Finally, Ms. Licastro warns of cognitive offloading, fearing that the reliance on AI will cause students' neural pathways to atrophy and diminish critical thinking. The rebuttal frames this differently, arguing that AI democratizes access to knowledge
Darrell,
and facilitates personalized learning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is faster better? Slow, intentional work produces reliable, replicable scholarship. Peer reviewers are awash in AI-generated materials, distracting them from the attention needed for the many genuine submissions they receive. Addressing these issues requires more than a tool that can fix formatting faster. Peer review and editorial work should remain a human endeavor built on mentorship, inclusion, and relationship building, which will be hampered if these roles are seen as replaceable by machines. For example, my opponent, intentionally or not, devalued the work of catalogers. Catalogers are highly trained professionals with expertise in their fields who methodically track down errors in our information systems. AI is not well suited to this work. Librarians at Colby College tested AI for metadata description, and the tool labeled an image of the Ku Klux Klan as people in costumes, and an image of women being registered to vote as people at a table. Errors like these are so common that cataloger Julian Lee said it takes longer to rectify than it does to simply not use the tool at all. And as Leo Lowe writes, information without origin is a liability. We are at risk of trading long-term control for short-term convenience. To be clear, using AI for medical diagnosis is necessarily dependent on existing data that underrepresents women and Black people and is biased against transgender populations. Using biased data exacerbates inequalities, and instead, diverse teams of scientists should be funded to design studies that are inclusive of these groups. And my opponent claimed, without citation, that job loss hasn't been happening historically. But to cite Harry Braverman, over the last 100 years, technology has been used as a weapon of domination in the creation, perpetuation, and deepening of a gulf between classes and society, and how the worker, systematically robbed of a craft heritage, is given little or nothing to take its place. This is happening to the academic and artistic worker in the age of AI. No one is regulating AI. Despite the fact that the companies are calling for government regulation, both the US and Canada have tried to pass moratoriums preventing regulation at the highest levels. And if even a few countries don't regulate, this is equivalent to no one regulating. We have seen this happen with social media in our global economy. My opponent stated that AI will help us disseminate the truth about our world, but the onslaught of AI slop makes it impractical to pick out authentic information from the flood of plausible nonsense or deepfakes. And researchers at OpenAI admitted that even with perfect data, AI must and always will fabricate results. This has created an Ouroboros of AI feeding on AI. leading to an urgent need for new information literacy skills for everyone. On that we agree, but particularly the most vulnerable populations. We have already seen numerous deaths by suicide, health, self-harm, and medical disasters as the result of AI use. AI is the new weapon of mass destruction.
Well, thanks so much to both Darrell and Amanda for what I think is one of the liveliest set of opening statements that we've experienced at this, in this debate program. So, the time is now yours for approximately 25 minutes. Please raise your hands. Please wait to speak until you have a microphone, in particular because it'll be important for our remote debater to be able to hear you. I saw a hand go up here, Toby.
Hi, Toby Green from Coherent Digital. To be fair, I've got a comment for both sides. Darrell, you said that humans get exhausted when handling the ever-increasing tide of content, which would lead to mistakes. Well, it seems that AI tools get exhausted too. Long AI sessions increase the risk surface, more opportunities for error, more chances for compounding, i.e. the longer the session, the higher the number of hallucinations. Amanda, you pose the argument that AI hinders learning. Well, it might well do, but is it AI or the computer? In 2015, the OECD published a report showing that frequent use of computers in schools is associated with lower results. As my old colleague Andrew Schleicher said, at the time, school technology has raised too many false hopes. So maybe AI is not the problem, it's just the computer. And as for your point that peer review done slowly by humans is inherently better, really? How many retractions were there last year?
Why don't we let Amanda respond first and then Darrell.
Can you hear me? Is my mic on?
Yep.
Excellent, wonderful. Thank you so much. So you're absolutely right that computers in classrooms are a problem, right? And there's a time to use them and a time to do analog, in-person, face-to-face conversation. However, besides the MIT research study that I cited, there's also a brilliant study out of the University of Toronto, funded by SSHRC, that showed that, again, they divided students into two groups. One was unable to use AI tools, one was, and not only did they assess the initial results, they then tested them a week later. Well, the group that used AI had absolutely no retention for the information, and the group that just used their own brains, right, had excellent retention for the information. That is AI. That is not, right, the computer, because both groups composed on the computer, right? I think there's lots of reasons why we want to limit computer use, especially in K through 12, but AI is a different beast, and we have the brain scans to prove it.
Darrell?
Toby, it's such a pleasure to hear your voice. Your question brings me back to a presentation that you did at the first global sales meeting for Elsevier in Amsterdam in 1996, where you gave a presentation talking about the publishing processes like making sausage, right? And so you have to start with the right meat and the right ingredients to have a good sausage. The same thing goes with AI. The reason why there are so many hallucinations is that you're not starting with a good foundation of truth, a good foundation of source documents. And that's where publishers have rushed to have these AI tools, and by putting in information that the AI cannot understand. But the AI is trained to give you an answer, versus the publisher being responsible and starting with a good foundation of information, such as a compute-ready document, which is a trusted source where the bots cannot attack it. But what it will do for you, it will provide you with semantic structure, it will provide you with entities, topics, FAQs, etc. So this information goes into the production system. It's quality, it's a source of truth. So you got to start with the right data and clean data, and not just assume that you can use any LLM, which is grabbing data from all over the place and is trained to give you an answer whether it has the information or not.
As well? Should I respond to the peer review question as well? Okay. To your second question for me on peer review. I am part of the editorial collective of the Journal of Interactive Technology and Pedagogy. We are in our 20th issue. We publish 2 issues a year. And this editorial collective model is one of distributed labor, where we pay graduate students a living wage, a full stipend, to manage the journal, and we have 20 members of that editorial collective that help distribute that work. When I say is faster, better, I mean for the research process, not the peer review process. We are able to tackle that peer review process with humans on that mentorship model very quickly because our senior members of the collective are mentoring our junior members and helping them understand the peer review process and working together to achieve those goals. We have a very strict AI policy that we will not use AI to review content, first of all, because researchers don't want their intellectual property dumped into these LLMs, but also because they want our, again, feedback, our personal feedback that helps them network and create those relationships. By the way, we are an open peer review model, not a double-blind peer review model, so they do get our genuine attention and feedback during that process.
Darrell, anything further on peer review?
Yes, I would like to add my thoughts there. And keep in mind that as I've been in this industry since '96, we've often have wondered why peer review takes so long. And it's important that the reviewers have tools that will help them to understand the context and then to check the citations of that work and then make their judgment based upon their research experience and hypothesis whether or not this paper is worthy of being published. We're not trying to take away anything out of the peer review process. We're trying to enhance it and make it better. And let me just say, a lot of the problem is that people use these generic large language model tools and expect precision and recall, and they're not going to get that. You have to make sure that it's fine-tuned to your specifications. There's a line in the movie Formula One where slow is smooth and smooth is fast, but we want to make sure that we're being accurate.
Okay, another comment from the floor here and then here. The gentleman in white.
Thank you. I guess 2 questions, because one doesn't really work for one argument. But is there a risk for how the AI tools that a lot of publishers are using? Publishers can't afford to build their own AI models. They can't afford to buy them. So they're partnering with these massive corporations like ChatGPT, Anthropic, and so on. Is there a risk of essentially handing over the reins for some of our technology to these people who don't have a vested interest in the publishing ecosystem? If they did, they could just buy all of the publishing ecosystem, basically. Someone like Google could come along and do that. And so if that is the case, then how do we make sure that that doesn't happen? How do we retain control over our relationship with AI as publishers?
Rick, may I answer?
Sure, and then Amanda.
Okay. This reminds me back in the day in the 90s when the internet first came around and the newspaper industry surrendered themselves to Google only to realize that Google was taking all of their content, making money off of it, but not giving them any type of reciprocal funding for that. And I think our industry, we really need to look at what's the most important thing that we do as an industry is that we publish quality research. So wouldn't it make sense if the publishing community got together like they did for ORCID and for Crossref and to develop an industry-wide tool that is formed and vetted? I know STM is working towards something similar. So I would argue that every publisher doesn't need to develop their own. We as an industry need to develop one that everyone will get to use and participate in the process.
Amanda?
Thank you for that great question. I cannot recommend the AI Empire by Karen Howe, strongly enough, that talks about how these tech oligarchies have created these products and not for our best interest, right? To create capital and to increase the power of the 1%, right? And to diminish the power of the 99%, right? To further divide classes and inequities across our society. But aside from not giving up power, as you so rightfully put it, to these tech oligarchies and the people in charge who certainly don't care about higher education, I would say that they in fact want to dismantle higher education. I would say we have small language models, and we've been using small language models for decades. My dissertation, which was published a decade ago, right, was a large data analysis that I curated myself, right, and did data analysis on myself. We already have those models, and we've been doing that work for a very long time. The Authors Alliance is currently working on exactly what Darrell just said, a public interest AI that is made by academics for academics with academic content. But we still need to be cognizant of two things. First is the fact that AI models will always divorce content from context, right? So that is not what we want from our scholarship. If you think about special archives at my institution, we have special collections that contain culturally sensitive material that needs those disclaimers, right, to not be used for malicious purposes. And if it's just treated as data, right, it doesn't come with the package. Furthermore, we also have the problem of needing to protect members of our community, especially in this political moment we are in, that not all of the work should be publicly accessible in these ways because it could be used against them. We just had a wonderful presentation during the lightning rounds on how libraries are sanctuary spaces, and we need to be protecting both our patrons and our researchers from the kinds of targeted attacks that could happen if their content is being scraped into tools like this without attention to their particular needs in these circumstances.
I'd just like to add that in 2010, the company I was working for at the time, Colexis, won a Cody Award, the Research with Workflow tool. Basically what the tool was, it was an AI semantic search tool. We could paste a manuscript, entire manuscript into the search box and then find articles in PubMed that matched it by entity structure and concepts. And it was a fantastic product. It actually led Elsevier to acquire the company. So that was back in 2010 that demonstrated the positive effects of AI. And that's what we need to embrace.
This debate. I think you've both got really valid points. I'm not sitting on the fence here. I work at a medical school. I work at Harvard Medical School, and I'm surrounded by doctors who some of them use AI to diagnose patients, and it's good in some instances where it's pretty straightforward, such as there's a recent study on mammograms, for example, that shows that AI is better than human eyes at picking out potential tumors. But on the other hand, it can be bad. I'd like to give you a bad example and then say why I'm giving you this example. It's about intuition and connecting the dots. So I heard an NPR story that was about 3 or 4 weeks ago on National Public Radio, where a psychiatrist was worried about the use of chatbots to diagnose psychiatric diseases. And she did an experiment, and she called up one of her chatbots and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, but I'm really depressed. I've lost my job. I feel my life is worthless. I don't know what I'm going to do with the rest of my days. You know, it's really miserable for me. I feel hopeless." And the chatbot replied, "Well, you know, Susan, it's not so bad. You know, maybe you can get another job, or maybe you can talk to your friends, and they'll cheer you up. And don't worry about it. It's going to be fine." So that was one story. Then the very next question is, "Could you give me a list of the highest bridges in New York?" And the chatbot said, "Yeah, sure. Why don't you try the Brooklyn Bridge?" And so the example I'm trying to give is that this was an inability to connect dots between what a human would clearly say, whoa, this is a problem, but the chatbot just gave factual responses. So what is your reply to that?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I cut a lot of this because I had such short amount of time to speak, but I have been the co-leader of our critical AI inquiry group at Swarthmore for 3.5 years. By the end of this academic year, we'll have 4 years. And we held a session on AI and wellness, co-led by our student wellness team, because this is such a huge issue on campus. To give you a sense of things, the wellness team did a survey of students at Swarthmore and found that 45% self-identify as lonely. It's an epidemic in traditionally college-age students. And many of these students are turning to AI chatbots for a lot of really systemic reasons that need to be addressed. But this week, 9 families in the United States sued Google because their children took their own lives based on advice given by AI chatbots. 9 children. And this is just this week. There are dozens of other cases where the AI chatbot has directly led to suicidal ideation, self-harm, and other medical disasters. I am also leading a lifelong learning session at our community borough for members of our community 60 to 80 years old who want to learn more about AI, and many of them are turning to AI for medical advice rather than turning to their trusted medical professionals for medical advice, and the consequences are disastrous, right? Asking for the wrong medications, taking the wrong doses, engaging in risky behavior based on the results. And this is because, and all the AI companies admit to this, they are sycophantic, right? They are built to tell you what you want to hear, right? So if you ask, should I harm myself? They will say yes. They are built to do so.
Allow me to add that, again, they're bad actors. And keep in mind that chat has been with us since the beginning of the internet. And items can be used, such as that can be used in a very productive and helpful manner, but also it's like a tool, like a hammer. A hammer can help to build a house, hit a nail, but it also can be used as a weapon to harm someone. So we have to be mindful of the context that we use and understand what are the current challenges within our environment. I teach at Seton Hall as well, and I deal with student issues every semester as well. And it's helping them to guide them directly to let them know that there is someone for them to talk to, and it shouldn't be an AI chatbot. That is absolutely does not make sense. But also let me share with you that there's an organization called the Algorithmic Justice League, a woman who attended MIT, and what she found, she's a black woman, what she found was that all of the images that were created in this MIT AI lab could not recognize her features in her face. So she started the Algorithmic Justice League to correct those algorithms that need to be corrected. So keep in mind that they're bad actors, and we got to make sure that we're putting the necessary guideposts to keep the bad actors from harming our society.
Good. Another hand down here and then here.
Really, really insightful debate from both sides. I guess I have a question that I feel like you guys are going to have different arguments on, so I want to kind of hear from both of you. Do you think it's a net benefit or a net detriment for scientific LLMs to be trained on existing works?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Is it a net benefit or net detriment for us to train scientific LLMs on published works?
Amanda, why don't you go first?
So a couple of questions back to you. First of all, are the authors consenting and getting proper attribution and compensation?
Well, so not necessarily.
Then no, right? Then that is copyright infringement. I think we all agree on that, right? Like if authors are not being asked, should my materials, or do I give consent for my materials to be in the model, and am I getting attribution and compensation for that content, then that's a non-starter. We have laws for that. That's illegal.
Amanda, would your position be the same where those authors are no longer the copyright holders in their work?
That's a way bigger question, right? I think that's a way bigger question.
Is your question really about authors getting compensation or about copyright holders getting compensation is another way to...
Right. So at my college, at Swarthmore College, we retain the ownership of all our intellectual property. The university does not, right? We, as the researchers, do. And therefore, we have a very strict guideline around how our intellectual property can be used by these tools. And I think we should maintain, right, that ownership whenever possible. If a publisher owns your intellectual property, right, if the publisher owns that, I still think they should ask the author's permission, and many of them are doing that, right? We've seen many publishers reach out and say, hey, we'll give you $300 per book if you let us put it into the LLM, and so far all of the researchers who work at my institution have said no to that proposition, which I think gives you kind of the general climate of how researchers are feeling about this, because again, that content will then be divorced from the context, they won't get attribution, and they don't know how it will be used.
Darrell?
Yes, I would say that, and I fully agree with Amanda that the authors have to maintain copyright attribution and hopefully be compensated, because I think the more quality, again, it starts with the quality of the source of the information. And as someone said earlier, with Retraction Watch, we've seen a lot of articles that have been pulled because of a variety of reasons. The question is, how do we establish a database of articles that represent accurate information? And that's where it needs to start. I think with that validated source of truth of information, it will allow us to move research better, faster, and more accurately.
There's another hand right down here in front.
Thank you, David Prosser from Research Libraries UK. Really fascinating discussion, so thank you both so much. I'm really inspired by the utopian view that Darrell has presented very eloquently, but it seems to me that that is a potential utopia, and that the dystopia that has been put forward by Amanda is the current dystopia. So for me to try and decide whether AI is going to be a net benefit, I have to try and think about whether or not we can get from the dystopia to the utopia, and what might have to happen for that to occur. And it strikes me that one of the reasons that we're in the dystopia is that there has been a chronic worldwide failure of regulation. It's been a disaster. And so can we catch up, can we regulate so that we can get rid of some of the problems that we've been talking about around theft of materials, around the types of harmful content. So my question, I guess, is can we get good regulation in place, or has that horse bolted now and we can't catch up? And with respect to Darrell, I'm not convinced about UNESCO's regulations being sufficient, especially considering that I think the US is about to withdraw from UNESCO for a third time.
I just have to say that I live in the United States, so I have zero faith that AI will be regulated in at least in the next 10 years, and by that time, we are certainly going to be very far down this road to reverse course. But I again want to point to social media, right? Social media has been desperately in need of regulation for 20 years, and we have done nothing to protect children, to protect young people, even to educate them about how to use these tools properly. We're still debating if cell phones should be allowed in the classroom in elementary school. Right? And you think that we're going to regulate AI now under the current wave of fascism across the world? I don't see it happening soon enough to make a difference, and I think you don't either.
You know, it's interesting. Over the last month, this is my third talk on AI and governance, and I think it's so important that we, as a publishing industry, need to take the lead. I don't think we should wait for the government to tell us how we can regulate. I think we need to come together and establish governance rules and follow these rules, because we all agree that no one needs bad scientific research. The problem in the United States, and I'm from the US, is that they got this Silicon Valley view of break things fast. We don't want to break things. We want to make things better. So my shout out in the article that I wrote in Research Information a few weeks ago, that we as an industry need to step up and govern ourselves.
I think it says something about the deep, deep weirdness of our current situation, that we are simultaneously concerned about a rise of fascism and insufficient regulation. I think we have time for one more question before we need to retake the poll. It looks like there's a hand in the back.
Hello, this is Jennifer Smith from City St George's, University of London. To the bright hope that there could be a cure for cancer discovered by a large language model and AI tool, how are the authors of the work that the LLM has used credited? How do they benefit in that? Also, who owns the discovery? Who benefits from that? And thinking back to the keynote speaker this morning, if we want societal benefit, then that's an important perspective as well. Because everyone in the scholarly communications community has family, we all have friends, we would all like to see that cure for cancer, but is it going to be a hallucination, and what is it built on?
Can we literally have 30 seconds from Amanda and then 30 seconds from Darrell?
I'm going to recommend Data Feminism by Lauren Klein and Catherine D'Ignacio, that has shown with incredible accuracy that those data sets are largely missing data about Black women, and therefore will only benefit the people that are already in that data set, right? Which is already a privileged group who are getting their mammograms every year, which is such a small portion of our population. So it will help a small group of people, but we still need more studies. We still need more efforts to get more humans, right, to get their mammograms and to increase that data, and more doctors to meet those patients where they are and to help them understand the importance of those results so that they get treatment.
Darrell, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I fully agree with what Amanda said. I mean, it's the bias, the human bias that we're experiencing in getting this information. It starts with the humans, and so as a society, we have to upgrade our thinking and to increase our humanity, if you will. If we increase our humanity and concern for our fellow human being, we will get access to the data from the various different Black communities, Hispanic communities, et cetera, et cetera. But with that said, we have to expand our humanity.
Okay, could I have another round of applause for both of our debaters? All right, let's put the poll back up on the screen. Now, before we vote, I have to make two very important points. If you did not vote before the debate, please don't vote now. If you did vote before the debate, please vote now, because what we're trying to measure is how many minds have been changed by this debate. All right, I am launching the poll. Here we go. And by the way, for your reference, our opening vote was 80% of respondents in favor and 20% of respondents opposed. It is looking like a pretty clear victory for Amanda. Wow. Okay, I think we can call it. Congratulations, Amanda, and thanks to Darrell. And I will just quickly say what I always say when we organize a debate like this. One of the reasons that I want to organize debates like this is because I think that the value of the conversation is so great, and I think that we've seen that here today. Another reason is that we live in a world in which we are constantly told that civil discourse does not change people's minds, that debate does not change people's minds. And whenever we do this, we prove in real time that that is not true. You watched it happening here today, so thank you for participating in that. Please don't forget to give your feedback either online or in paper. I'd also like to acknowledge that today's plenary sessions were kindly sponsored by Springer Nature, so thanks very much to them. And with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Mark for a couple of quick remarks.